This is Tyler Matzik, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Got a pretty good team this year. You guys are currently a Wildcard team. You know, knocking on the door of first place in the National League East. How do you feel about this team?
I think we had a great team. I think we got a great chance. Because our starting pitching's been doing great. Our lineup's banging. Bullpen's been doing a pretty good job. So we just stay this course. I think we have a very good chance of winning this division. And you know, when that happens, you know, hopefully we get a good spot in the in the tournament, and we can take the trophy again.
If they can win in Atlanta, if they can perform in Atlanta and get some of those games back, which I believe they can, then the Braves could set themselves up for success. They can make a run in September.
This is Matt Olson. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Well, this is when the Braves are going to catch the Mets. This is when the Braves are really going to make a drive to catch up to the Mets in the division. Because, you know, earlier in the year they had a 10.5 game lead. It was a different perspective. Now, the Braves have already caught the Mets. And I know they're a half game back, but they've caught the Mets. That being said, this is their last chance right here, this couple of week stretch, for them to get ready for that series with the Mets in Atlanta. This is a chance for them to either add on to their lead if they're leading, again, take the lead again, or a chance to extend their lead, whatever the case may be. This is their last chance to bolster whatever they're going to have going into the series with the Mets in Atlanta. This is it.
Hi, this is Phil Necro. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
I think this is a very good team. I think they can make a run at a postseason. They're well in the wild card race right now. But that being said, you know, if you want to set yourself up for, you know, a profitable postseason, I look at it and I look at October right now, and I think you got to win the division.
I'm Luke Jackson. You're on deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate it. A lot to talk about today as the postseason is officially underway. Tonight, we are going to be going through every single wild card series, giving you my thoughts of game number one, and of course, heading into the rest of each series. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be going through each and every single one of those. Also, if you're a new watcher, make sure to do me a favor. First of all, like this video, subscribe to this channel so you can keep up with everything going on across baseball, and of course, everything going on in this year's postseason. But also, hit the bell for notifications so that you can keep up to date and know when we go live right here at On Deck. To kick things off tonight, we're going in order by basically what time the games came on today. That's going to take us to the Rays versus the Guardians. This was a fun game to watch. Very low-scoring affair by both of these two teams. No surprise with these two guys on the mound. Of course, McClanahan and Bieber. I mean, look, guys, you weren't going to get a lot of runs on these two guys. Both guys have had a great year. Of course, Bieber, a former Cy Young Award winner. Tampa Bay, Obviously, Shane McClanahan has been great this year, 2.54 ERA, 12-8 in the win and loss column, 194 strikeouts. I mean, these are very comparable pitchers. I don't think you were going to go wrong with either one of these two guys, and they both pretty much had what you would expect. Again, a 2-1 final, and no surprise to these two guys on the mound. This is where it wrapped up. Both guys pitched 7 innings, Bieber plus some change. A little bit difference in the hits there. Bieber gave up 3 hits versus McClanahan's 7, and it would be a little bit of crowding on the bases that would lead to the difference. Both pitchers only gave up 1 homer, and it was the difference in the game. One was a solo shot, one was a 2-run shot by Jose. I apologize for that. One was a 2-run shot by Jose Ramirez, and that, of course, would lead to the final score being 2-1 in the favor of the Guardians. And, of course, this is a big deal for the American League. The winner of this series will, of course, go on to face the Yankees. Jose Ramirez 2-run homer was the biggest shot for the Guardians today. That was, of course, going to take them into Game 2. We'll, of course, keep you updated tomorrow night. A very exciting series in the wild card for those two teams, as the winner will gear up to face the New York Yankees. For that, we're going to head on out to Philadelphia versus the Cardinals. This was a game that was an insane one to watch, because the entire game you felt like it was the Cardinals game. I mean, you really did. And going into this game, you had 2 pitchers on the mound that weren't going to give into very easily. Of course, Zach Wheeler for Philadelphia, and this was just an interesting game. Zach Wheeler held it down to 2 runs for the Cardinals. And as surprising as this was, it was a 2-run lead going into the 9th, and that's really where it left off. Jose Quintana pitched a great game, and that was the biggest question for St. Louis going into the game, was how he would pitch compared to Zach Wheeler, and he really kept it scoreless, and the bullpen did fine. And then it was, they brought in Helsley, and that was the difference. They brought him in the 8th inning today. And look, I'm not going to question a manager's move. I'm really not, because that's not something I necessarily love to do. But this is something that I think is questionable. And you bring in your closer, and it's nothing that's unforeseen. We've seen this happen a lot. You bring in your closer in the 8th inning to get a 5-out save, a 6-out save. Today it was a 5-out save, and they just don't have it. They don't have enough to do that. You're talking about a guy that pitched 40 pitches today. Here's why I question it. Number one, the Phillies had a party in the 9th inning. A ton of runs, 6 runs in the 9th inning, and that's enough. Obviously, you see here, boom, hit by pitch. That knocked in a run with the bases loaded. Segura had a 2-run single. Marsh had a 1-run single. They take a 6-run lead in the 9th, down by 2. That is insane. They end up going on to win 6-3. The Cardinals try to come back, but it just wasn't enough. Anyway, the reason I question this, and this is to go into tomorrow, you're going into tomorrow not only without your closer, but also down 1 in the series. If you had just gone in the normal order of things and kept things simple, you probably wouldn't be in the pickle you're in. This is on the Cardinals that we're talking about here. So I really do question that. And it's not necessarily something that, is going to alter, this series. I mean, I think the Cardinals still have plenty to go for here. I think they can still win this series. But it is certainly another challenge in an already very challenging situation, that being the wild card. This is a very good day for the Phillies going into the rest of the series. If you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan, you have to feel like your team stole one. I mean, you absolutely do. So beyond that, the next game we're going to talk about is the Mariners Mariners headed to face the Blue Jays. Luis Castillo, he had a good day today, pretty good day today for sure. I mean, the offense was there, and the Mariners would go on to win 4-0. Suarez would double. That would not get a run. Raley with a big 2-run homer in the 1st inning to really add on. They never looked back. They went on to win 4-0. Luis Castillo, 7 1/3 innings pitched today. You can't knock that at all. And of course, you get what you pay for. Luis Castillo was absolutely phenomenal today. He held it down. The Mariners take a 1-0 lead in this series, and I'm sure they're going to not look back going forward into this series. They take on the Blue Jays, of course, tomorrow for Game 2, and we will see how we go. beyond that. So a very exciting day. Going to cap it off with probably the biggest series in relation to my audience, the Padres and the Mets. This was a big deal because this, for this particular series is interesting for Braves fans because the Mets are where the Braves would have been had the Braves lost to the Mets at the end of the season. And of course they're not there, but the Mets are. And it's a challenge because the Padres are operating on all cylinders. They have a great lineup. They showed tonight. We're going to get to that in just a second. But they also have a great rotation. Of course, Yu Darvish on the mound tonight. Blake Snell on the mound tomorrow. Joe Musgrove for Game 3. It's going to be a great series for them. And with all of the struggles that we've seen out of Scherzer, he showed that tonight, but also DeGrom, it's going to look, I think it looks pretty bleak for Mets fans right now. So going into tonight's game, you had Yu Darvish versus Max Scherzer. You expect a pretty good pitcher's duel, especially with the stats that you're looking at on the screen. Very, if we're honest, it's leaning towards the way of Max Scherzer there, but don't underestimate Yu Darvish. He has pitched excellently this year, and he pitched excellently tonight. He would go on to throw 7 innings, only giving up 6 hits, 1 run, and picking up 4 strikeouts. On the contrary, Max Scherzer would go 4 2/3 and give up 7 earned runs. Very uncharacteristic of the future Hall of Famer, but as of late, that has been more like it for him. And you hate to see that. You really do hate it for Mets fans in a way. This is something that, it feels like a complete collapse at the wrong time for them. Of course, the end of the regular season, not a fun time for Mets fans, but really just this postseason has not gotten off to a good start because right here you see the Padres, again, operating on all cylinders tonight. First it was Bell, a solo homer in the top of the first. Then it was Grisham in the top of the second with another solo shot. And then it was Jurickson Profar with a 3-run homer in the top of the fifth. And also Machado as well. In the bottom of the fifth, the Mets tried to get something going with a solo shot for Eduardo Escobar. That was all they had tonight. The Padres would go on to win 7-1. And look, if you're a Mets fan, usually with the current pitching staff that the Mets have, you would hope that, maybe, that they can come back. Of course, DeGrom on the mound tomorrow. And Bassett on the mound for a potential Game 3. You have to hope for the best at this point. You have to hope that DeGrom has figured something out since the series with the Braves. And you got to hope they can win tomorrow and get into a Game 3. If you get into Game 3, anything can happen. But the Mets are not looking good right now. And I got to be honest with you. I think the biggest surprise of today was this game right here, the Phillies and Cardinals. I think this was the biggest surprise because it feels like the Phillies stole one to me. And I might be wrong, but I think this was the biggest surprise. Again, the Cardinals up 2-0 in the ninth. You got to think they're either going to put it away. Maybe the Phillies steal one by getting 3 runs, but to put up 6 in the ninth inning is insane. And the Cardinals were able, or the Phillies rather, were able to do that today and steal one for the Cardinals. And look, when your fans are leaving the building, that's not a good look. And that's what Cardinals fans were doing today. The Phillies took home field advantage from the Cardinals, and they were able to do that. And, I got to feel like the Cardinals, not only the fans, but I got to feel like the team itself is just awful deflated now. All this momentum headed into the back half of the season, the end of the Pujols era and how well that's gone for him, the Yadier Molina, end of his career. You got to think they're wanting to play for something. And I just got to feel like they just felt deflated after today's game. And here's the thing. I really wanted to get into this at some point, just my opinion on this postseason and the way it looks right now. Because I look at this postseason, and we're going to look at the graphic here in just a second. But I look at this postseason, and I just see a lot of different ways this could go. But for me, I look at the Wildcard series, the series that we're talking about right now. I don't see a way that any of these teams could really go deep into the postseason. And look, I could be wrong. Certainly I could be wrong. But I look at this and I say, let's be honest here. Because let's just start with Tampa Bay and Cleveland. Cleveland won today. Let's say they go to Game 3. Tampa wins tomorrow. They go to a Game 3. They now have to face the New York Yankees on short rest. Now, this is the one team that I think you could see an upset with because I just do. I think the Guardians could potentially beat the Yankees on short rest. It's asking a lot, but I think that could happen. I think it's unlikely. Because, look, here's the thing. I know that, wild card teams have won the World Series before. I had this conversation with someone earlier. But the difference in this year is that they have to go through 3 games with 1 day off if they play all 3. And then they have to play whatever team is waiting for them in the division series on serious short rest. Flip on over to the National League. You have St. Louis and Philadelphia, right? St. Louis just went through a brutal loss. If for them to win, they have to win the next 2 with Waino and whoever's waiting on game 3. And they have to count on that. And then they have to face a ready to go set rotation for the Atlanta Braves, the defending World Series champs. For the AL, for the other side of the American League, the Seattle Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays. Seattle won today, and that's great, but they have to then face the Astros, who are by and large the best team in the American League, and it's not even close. I just don't see a way. And for the Mets and Padres, the Padres obviously won pretty decisively today. If they do that tomorrow, maybe they don't waste that much. You get game 3. Joe Musgrove can start game 3. Maybe you can get Yu Darvish for game 2. But even then, you have to face the Dodgers on short rest. And I just think it's asking an awful lot. What I do think could happen is that those teams could, beat up on the Yankees, the Braves, the Astros, and LA. And at that point, you're testing the teams that already have that bye. You're giving them a good test. But I just don't see a logical way. Unless you have 5 solidified, just great pitchers, I don't see a legitimate way that any of those teams can make it. And look, I could be wrong. One of these teams will likely prove me wrong. But I just don't see mathematically a way where that happens, at least on paper. Crazier things have happened in the postseason without a doubt. And I could be very wrong. And if you want to let me know in the comment section, of course you can do that. But if you'll do me a favor, do realize that we're going to have a very active chat because we're talking about the postseason. If you got a question, make sure to super chat it. I'll get to you first. You will be first in line. Also, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. And of course, you can follow me on social media right there. The tags are right there, Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me there to have a close relationship, to know when we go live, all that good stuff. We post there regularly. And of course, we also post here regularly, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you guys for tuning in, by the way. I know it's kind of late. We're going to talk about everything going on in the chat. I'll get to as many questions as I can, but a lot going on tonight, as you can tell. A lot of postseason games. Credit to all the teams that won today. Big Saturday tomorrow, and of course rest of the weekend, and of course next week we'll be watching the Braves starting on Tuesday. So a lot to be excited about for the Atlanta Braves, but there is a lot to talk about tonight when it comes to other teams and the way this is going to set up. For the Braves, of course, it's going to be either the Cardinals or the Phillies, and for the Dodgers, it's either going to be the Padres or the Mets, and we'll have to see how that goes, but that's kind of where we are right now. Let's talk to you guys, though. Chris Field says, what's up? What's up with you, man? Been watching baseball pretty much all day long. Can't get any better than that. Jake Hobby says, hey, missing Atlanta, but enjoying stress-free baseball. Yeah, it is stress-free baseball. It's very much just a time where we can watch it and see how things shape up. It's not so much a worrisome thing like it typically has been as of late for the Atlanta Braves. William Fulgham says, $43 million, just don't buy what it used to. He's referring to Max Scherzer in the postseason. I questioned that deal when it happened. You're talking about a guy who's, if we're honest, on the back leg of his career, had a great career, Hall of Famer, no doubt. Max Scherzer, one of the best pitchers in the game. But I questioned that move at the time. I just said, that's kind of a lot to pay for someone of that age. And, I think that's kind of showing its ugly head at the worst time possible for the Mets. Good for the Braves, good for the Padres, bad time for the Mets. You hate to see it. Chris Field says, I guess those black uniforms we heard so much about before the game were appropriate because they look like a funeral for the Mets. Yeah, they look good. I'll give it to them. I was surprised when they busted them out, but, it is what it is. Clayton McCullers says Mets fans are already wanting to get rid of the whole team. We follow some Mets fans here at the channel, and I've already seen their reactions for tonight. I will give it to Frank the Tank. I don't know how many of you guys follow him. I talk about him a lot on this channel because I think his TikToks are great. But he predicted this. He absolutely, fundamentally predicted this months ago. You got to give it to him. He predicted, first of all, that the Braves would win the division some kind of way. And he also predicted that, it would be that Yu Darvish would pretty much put the Mets to sleep. And, after a 7-1 score, he pretty much did. And the Mets had nothing for him. And we'll see how the Padres handle business for the next 2 days and whether or not the Mets can break through. But as of right now, Frank the Tank has absolutely killed it. Richard Davis says, whoever the Braves play, they won't be facing their top 2 starters. If they do, it will be on short rest. That's the benefit here. You're watching the Mets right now, right? That's the team that the Braves would have been had they lost the division. They lost to the Padres. The Braves very well could have had to face the Padres tonight. And whether or not they would have won or not, up for debate, doesn't really matter, but they would have had to use Fried and Kyle Wright at least. And for them to pitch in the next series, at the top of the next series, be on very short rest, and it's not really ideally what you want to do. That's a lot of the reason I don't think that there's a team in the wild card this year at least that I think really has a good shot at getting to the World Series, much less winning it. Because if it's one thing to pitch on short rest in the World Series or even the NLCS, but if you're already pitching on short rest in the NLDS, you're really struggling going forward. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to do. So for me, I don't think there's a team that can do it, and we'll see. That's my prediction. That's my hot take going into the rest of this series. But that's kind of where I'm at as of right now. Also, guys, do me a favor. Don't forget, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. It really does help the channel out, and it really does help me grow. You guys recently helped me get over 4,000 subscribers. We want to see that number keep on climbing. We want you to be a part of it, so please do be a part of it. Might Be Genius said Frank the Tank should be the Mets mascot. That's great. He also says the Mets won't make it past the Padres. They're already defeated mentally. Yeah, I think a lot of that was due to the finale of the National League East race. I think that was a big part of it. How do you put this? I hate it for Mets fans in a way because they really did have a great team this year. They didn't tie, as I've seen on social media everywhere in the standings, but they did get just as many wins as the Braves did in the standings, and you have to give it to them. They had a great year. The Braves had a great year, and if the Mets were in any other division, they probably would have won it. That being said, I hate it for them. However, it's what they've been given. It's what they earned, and we got to move past it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. How many times do we have to say that? So hate it for them, but that's where we are. William Fogum has a super chat. He says, I guess Spencer was right. We saw what the Mets were in October. Spencer got a lot of heat for that at the time, and to be honest with you, I didn't see that big of a deal with it. He basically said that, the Mets got a lot of lucky hits. We'll see what they are in October. Hopefully we'll see what Spencer Strider is in October here pretty soon. That would be ideal. Guys, follow William's example. Super chats do put you first in line for comments. I really do appreciate that, William. Thank you for commenting. Jorge says, the Cardinals were devil magic and the Mets were LOL Mets. What a day. Yeah, the Braves have had quite the history with the Cardinals in the postseason. Of course, I hate to remind you, 2011, 2012, you guys remember Chipper Jones's last game ever in the major leagues. What was finished on an infield fly call that to this day I don't quite understand. And of course, a few years later, 2019, the Fultonevich ordeal happened in Game 5 of the NLDS. We all remember that. So the Braves have had kind of a troublesome past with Cardinals in the postseason. That being said, the Cardinals had a troublesome day with the Phillies. Look, whoever the Braves get, whether it be the Cardinals or the Phillies, I have pretty good faith in the Braves to finish that series off because of who would be on the mound for the Braves and who would be on the mound for either of those teams. You're either going to face a guy on short rest or you're going to face a guy that's not leading their rotation in any way. So it's one or the other. And I think the Braves are, frankly, have the veterans to do it, have the ability to do it, and I think they're going to finish that series off fairly quickly. As are most of the teams that are already in the division series and have that bye. The Yankees, the Astros, the Dodgers, and now the Braves. Let's see. Might Be Genius says the Phillies and Padres are both sneaky good. I think the Phillies are okay. I don't know if they're sneaky good. I think they're good. But they are good. They can win ball games, and that's really the key here. They broke out today. They took advantage of a pitcher that didn't have it, and credit to them for doing so. They didn't have any offense for the majority of that game. They broke out, but they really just took advantage. Bases loaded, you got to throw a pitch, and they threw it, and the Phillies really did take advantage. That being said, on the flip side, there is nothing sneaky about what the Padres are. They have a great rotation. They have a great lineup. They've had the pieces all year. It's all about, getting them to, work together. And, Hader has recently come back to life. But the lineup has always been there. You look at the lineup. I said today, I started going through the lineup. I've kind of forgotten who all was in that lineup. It's Jerickson and Profar leading off, followed by who? Like Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Josh Bell, Jake Cronenworth. The bottom of their lineup is good too. You got Trent Grisham in the bottom of their lineup. You got guys, and they've had that all year long, and they're finally, that's the kind of thing that can show up in the postseason. That good lineup can show up in the postseason. They of course got to Scherzer today. That was interesting to see. But it is what it is. I don't think there's anything sneaky about what the Padres are. Jorge says, Tyler, do you prefer the Phillies over the Cardinals? I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Phillies had a great day today. I think the Cardinals are a better team, a complete team, than the Phillies are. I think the Phillies are playing, with 2 DHs on their corner outfields. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're postseason ready. So if you're asking me who would I want to face out of those two teams, if I was anybody, it would probably be the Phillies. That being said, do I want to necessarily go through Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola? No. That's what's so dangerous about the Wildcard series. I don't want to go through that. And that's what the Cardinals are having to go through. The 2 runs they had weren't enough. And, the Phillies have a good offense. Kyle Schwarber is their leadoff guy. So they have a good offense. But obviously their key starters there are the big attraction. I look at that, then I look at the Cardinals, and I see, Wainwright, Molina, and Pujols, and, all their young stars as well. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, they have guys. Both of these teams have guys. It's all about who shows up at the right time. I'll be honest with you right now, I think the Phillies are going to win this series, and that is not the pick I would have had going in. When I look at the bracket, that is so far from the pick that I would have had that it's not even funny, right? When I look at this bracket, I probably would have circled St. Louis to move on. And it's not like I'm crazy. They're seated above them. They're 3rd, and Philadelphia is 6th. So it's not like I would be picking, the opposite of the upset. I would be picking the obvious choice. But the Philadelphia, the way they won today, not only that they won today, but the way they won today. They took out 2 of the Cardinals' best relievers. Beyond that, they also won in just dominating fashion. And that might not mean a lot to you, but I'm telling you, think about how that felt for Cardinals fans, and then think about how it felt for the actual Cardinals, the team itself. For them to virtually have no offense and score 6 runs in the 9th inning, guys, that is completely detrimental to the to the attitude and that kind of thing. Now, look, I believe that the Cardinals are going to come back swinging tomorrow, but that being said, it just might be a lot to overcome, because not only is your closer pretty much gone for at least tomorrow, maybe the series. He threw 40 pitches today, and that's Helsley I'm talking about. That is going to have an effect itself. So if you're asking me who I would rather face, I think before the series I would have told you Philadelphia, obviously. That's who I would rather have faced. That would have been the lesser of the 2 opponents, in my opinion. But the Phillies proved themselves a worthy opponent today. And look, it's not about who you'd rather face. It's about who gets there. And in a 3-game series, anything can happen just as much as a 1-game series could. If this was a 1-game series, Philadelphia would have absolutely stole this one today. That's what's so fun about the wild card. So we will see what happens, and of course we'll address it once we know who the Atlanta Braves will be facing. But right now, Phillies have the lead, so it's looking like we might see Philly. Jorge brings up another good point. He says, hopefully the Phillies and Cardinals series goes 3 games. That's the other thing about this, this bracket here. Not every wild card series is going to go to 3 games. So it may be that the Dodgers, don't have the advantage that the Braves do. Let's say San Diego wins tomorrow. They get Joe Musgrove in game 1 as opposed to somebody else who's further down the totem pole in starting rotation, the top 2 starters get an extra day's rest. You might be able to reuse those guys if you need to. But then on the other side of the bracket, let's say the St. Louis-Philadelphia series goes 3 games. You're not getting anybody to face really in the first game or 2 for Atlanta. You're just not. And that's the big deal about this series to me, is that it's mathematically such an advantage. I mean, every team that had the bye to get to the division series, every division winner pretty much, your Yankees, your Astros, the Braves, and the Dodgers, every one of those teams is essentially like given every bit of favorability. And look, I'm not saying that that's wrong. The wild card is it's essentially a fighter's chance to get to the World Series. It's your shot. It is an opportunity. It's an opportunity that Philadelphia wouldn't have had, the Rays would not have had last year. And I'm not saying that it should be taken away. I don't think it should. But what I am saying is 1 game compared to 3 walking into the NLDS is a big difference. Because, again, at least, if you won the 1 game, you wasted, in theory, 1 starting pitcher, maybe a lot of your pen, but you had a chance to do something. Of course, the Nationals, the most recent winner of a wild card team that went on to win the World Series. It was possible. But I think this one is making it a lot more difficult for a wild card team to actually compete deep into the postseason. Again, it's possible, but it's a lot to ask. Unless you have 5 solidified starters, I just don't see a team that can do it. And I'd be surprised if there was one. Might Be Genius says there's going to be 1 upset tomorrow at least. I mean, look, there might be, there might not be. I think we had a few today. I certainly think the Phillies was an upset over the Cardinals. I thought Tampa Bay was going to win, and that was actually a very competitive game. The Tampa Bay-Cleveland game was, again, very competitive. The Mariners won pretty soundly. That was technically an upset seeding-wise. And the Padres beat the Mets. That was technically an upset. But I think it's going to be a very interesting day tomorrow because some teams are going to clinch and move on automatically. Some teams are going to have to go into a Game 3. Tomorrow, I think, will be the most interesting day out of all. We will see. Mark Narmore tunes in. He says, "What's up, Tyler? Best Braves show on the internet. Not even close. AA, please don't spend another dime until you sign Dansby." Well, first off, thank you for the support. I do appreciate it. Of course, if you're watching and you're wondering, hey, why does he have all this Braves memorabilia? Of course, we are talking about Major League Baseball as a whole right now for good reason. The Wildcard series is taking place. So we are talking about that. But in my normal time, we do focus more so on the Atlanta Braves, of course, and of course their journey across the season. We have a lot to talk about, hopefully in the next few weeks with the postseason. But yeah, thank you for that, Mark. Thank you for the support. Of course, all of you out there that do support Braves on Deck, I do appreciate you. Aiden says the Mets just don't know how to play the games that matter the most. Here's the thing. It comes down to a few things. It comes down to experience. It comes down to, lack of a better word, clutchness, and just the ability to play within your own realm, to play within your own mind. And the Mets have struggled with that this year. And you saw it first really with the series against the Braves a couple of weeks ago. I mean, that's really when you first saw it. And, playing in New York is a lot different than playing in some of these other, markets. It just is. And you got a lot of people to answer to in the media, fans to answer to, and it is difficult. I'm not making excuses for these guys. I think they, you got to win the games handed to you, and they didn't. And they had to win 1 game against the Braves to avoid the situation they're in, and they could not. Aiden wants to know, do I see us re-signing Dansby anytime soon? Look, Dansby is a great player, without a doubt. He was one of the biggest players, in the series a couple weeks ago with the Mets. No doubt about it. He really was. And I would hope that, sure, that the Braves would be able to re-sign Dansby. Look, we interviewed Dansby in his rookie year. I'm a big Dansby fan. I like Dansby a lot. That being said, I think we will re-sign him. However, I also want to keep in mind that baseball is a business. It's not a, we want to keep everybody mindset, not all the time. And with Dansby's situation as of right now, I look at, frankly, I look at a few things, but I look at the way the Freddie situation went down. I don't want that to happen, but, it is certainly a possibility. Dansby very well might decide that, we're going to, I'm going to go look for more money on the market. He's well within his right to do so. And as much of a possibility as that is, I don't see it happening. I think Dansby does want to stay here. It is his hometown. It is where he's from. But I also wouldn't blame the guy for getting the biggest check he could get. And Freddie certainly did, and that is what it is. But for the Braves situation, they also have a young kid named Vaughn Grissom who has had a year that exceeded any expectation. And I know he had his recent struggles, but all in all, this kid had a great year. And, he is potentially the future of shortstop for the Braves. If not shortstop, then some other position. But this is a guy who could very well take up that position if need be. I don't know that he's necessarily ready to play every day. I don't think his defense is as good as Dansby's. I know all the comments that are going to happen when I say that. But this is a guy who I think the Braves could use as leverage in those conversations. That's kind of what I'll leave you with there. Let's see. A lot of you guys being active, I really do appreciate it. Hato Mato tunes in. Let me take out the trash real quick, guys. I apologize. All right. Hato Mato says, like if you want the Mets to get sent home. That's funny. Jorge says, the Phillies bullpen isn't that good. The Braves need to take advantage of that if they face them. Yeah, I'm not sure what the head-to-head matchup is for the Braves and Phillies this year. Let me see if I can find it. But I look, the Braves have seen the Phillies an awful lot, and we're very familiar with them. Obviously, we played them a lot this year, and I think we're a better team than the Phillies. I think we're a more complete team than the Phillies. But there is something to be said for head-to-head matchups. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to try to count this as quickly as I can, so bear with me. 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 4-2, 4-4, 5-4. 5-5, 6-6, 9-6, 9-8. All right, we are 11-8. So the Phillies have beat the Braves 8 times this year, but the Braves did win 11 times. So the Braves have the head-to-head matchup. I pretty much expected that. I don't think there was any surprise there. But yeah, the Braves have played pretty well against Philadelphia. Again, they're very familiar with them. However, Bryce Harper was out for a lot of the year. Of course, that has to be somewhat considered. I don't think it should be too overly considered, but it is something to just take a look at real quick. Personally, I think that the Braves, again, have a more complete team. I think they have a more complete rotation, and I think they have a more complete bullpen, obviously. Richard Davis says, Braves have 3 good starters. He's referring to Max Fried, Kyle Wright, and Charlie Morton. 4 if Strider is ready. Most other teams have 2 good starters, maybe 3. I agree with you. Jorge says, Tyler, I don't want to get out ahead of things because I can't predict the future. Neither can I. But if the Braves get the chance to face the Dodgers in the NLCS, do you think Freddie hammers the Braves? That is actually a very good question. I don't think you're getting out too ahead of yourself because I'll be honest with you, and I could be wrong, but I really believe that the Braves and the Dodgers are going to match up. And I might be looking ahead too quickly. Of course, both teams have to get through a 5-game series with either, whoever comes out of the wild card. But for me, I do think the Dodgers and Braves are inevitably going to end up. I think we expected to match up in the postseason at the beginning of the year because that's been, who we match up with every year in the NLCS if we make it that far. And it's kind of what we've become accustomed to. That being said, in terms of the Freddie situation, look, here's the deal. Freddie is a great player. Freddie almost won the batting title this year. I don't know if he did or not, but I know he was in that conversation. What I can tell you is this. We cannot worry about what a former Atlanta Brave is going to do. Okay? Is Kenley Jansen going to blow their socks off? I mean, are they worried about that? I doubt it. I think we have to focus on what our team is going to do. Ron Washington said it pretty perfectly. As long as quote, we go in there and play our brand of baseball, then it doesn't matter. We could beat anybody, end quote. That being said, the Braves had to focus on playing their game of baseball. I would also say that the Braves have a pretty good first baseman as well. We picked up this guy, shortly right after the whole Freddie ordeal, and he's been pretty good for the Braves. He's also the player of the week this week. He absolutely killed the Mets. He's hitting, phenomenally lately. And, 3 home runs in the 3 games versus the Mets. He performed when he needed to. And, I think we need to accept the fact that this is our first baseman. I'm, of course, referring to Matt Olson, for those of you that are just listening. But, yeah, look, Freddie's a great player. He's obviously got his time spent with Atlanta. We, of course, appreciate that. We know how good of a player he is. I'll be honest with you, I'm just not worried about it. He could very well hit a homer to walk it off. And as much as that would sink our stomachs and all, you cannot worry about that. But that's just my personal opinion. Let's see. You guys are being very active tonight. Mab, hey Tyler, am I the only one happy to see the Mets spend a record-breaking payroll and still likely get eliminated before the Braves playoff even start? DeGrom even has a 6.7 ERA over the last 7 games. Yeah, look, payroll doesn't mean everything. The Padres have one of the biggest payrolls, and they're in the Wildcard series as well. They're playing against the Mets. The Braves are going to have a big payroll next year. Payroll doesn't always mean everything. Just because you have pieces does not mean you have a team. And, we're kind of seeing that play out as the postseason goes on. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how it finishes. Because, look, here's the thing. The Yankees are in this conversation. The Dodgers are in this conversation. They have 2 of the biggest payrolls as well. So, we are going to have to wait and see. We are going to have to see how it goes and see how it progresses. We'll see. Jesse Lancaster asked a pretty good question. What do you think happens to Jake Odorizzi? I was actually talking to a trusted friend of mine today about this. Former player, not the one coming in next week, somebody else. And I was basically asking him, what do you think about our pitching? Strider being out and all this and that. I kind of explained it, and I mentioned Odorizzi specifically. I was like, look, I kind of like the idea of Bryce Elder. I like the idea of Bryce Elder. I like the idea of Kyle Muller. Maybe both pitching as opposed to pitching Jake Odorizzi. And, I think I still like that. And he basically said he doesn't know if Jake Odorizzi is going to make the roster. I will say that I think Jake Odorizzi has done what was expected this year. His last start was very good, and he's shown moments of being really good, but that's not always the case with Odorizzi, and that's the biggest problem. Is we don't really know what we're going to get, and in the postseason, especially in a Game 5 situation, Game 7 situation, going even deeper, you don't want that guy on the mound, and that's kind of what I worry about. Odorizzi, phenomenal player. I mean, he's obviously in the big leagues for a reason, but I want, something that we can expect to be consistent. And I've mentioned the idea of pitching Bryce Elder before in the postseason, and I still would stand by that. But, of course, we're going to have to wait and see, what happens and how that goes and what decisions they make. I wouldn't be ultra surprised if he didn't make the postseason roster. I also wouldn't be surprised if he pitched Game 4. That's kind of what I would tell you. I mean, it's just very up in the air right now. Jorge says, I hope Dansby stays. I now realize how important he is to the team, but I thought the same about Freddie. I don't think if he goes, it'll hurt quite as much as Freddie, but hopefully he stays. It's funny you say that because I've heard some people say that it would hurt so much more than Freddie. I've heard people say it wouldn't hurt as much. Here's the deal. I know that we have personal attachments to these players. I get it. You root for these guys. You care about these guys. You want them to do great, obviously for the team and for their personal benefit. But I think a lot of us, have to realize that it is just baseball and it is just a game. And, these players are going to have to choose what, benefits their lives the best. And I hope Dansby ultimately decides to play. He's a great talent on the field. He's a great shortstop. He's been a great hitter this year. But at the same time, if the deal isn't there, I got to be honest with you. This guy right here, Alex Anthopoulos, he's not going to make that deal. And he couldn't make it last year with Freddie. He's not going to make it with with Dansby if it's not the right one. Now, I do think it is encouraging to see deals made like Michael Harris, like Austin Riley, and even here lately, Charlie Morton, who a lot of you guys thought was getting drastically overpaid. Whatever the case may be, I think it's a good indication that payroll is increasing. And I think that is a good sign in terms of returning Dansby or not. But we will have to see. Jorge says, Freddie kills Charlie. I'm worried about that game if it happens. It's one game, And look, Charlie can do great things under pressure. I would also keep that in mind. Bradford says, I think Dansby earned a new contract not just in that series against the Mets, but has played the whole year. I agree. I don't believe there's someone that could replace Dansby with like did with Freddie. I mentioned Vaughn Grissom. Trey Turner would be on the market. Carlos Correa would be on the market. There's guys out there. I don't know for what you're saying. I don't know if there's anybody that could come in and be a leader quite like Dansby is, just right off the bat. I mean, everybody wanted Matt Olson to be what Freddie was. Matt Olson is not going to be what Freddie was. Matt Olson can only be Matt Olson, right? I think as the team evolves, we're going to see how it plays out. And I think there's leaders all across this team. I think Ozzie Albies is a great leader. I think Austin Riley is a great leader. I think d'Arnaud is a great leader. Max Fried, great leader. Charlie Morton, great leader. In the bullpen, I would say Matzik. I would say, Kenley Jansen. There are leaders all across this team. It's not always just one guy. There might be a face of the franchise, but there's never just one guy that's the leader. There's different departments, and each one has its own. And I think as of right now, look, nobody wants to lose Dansby. I think that's obvious. This whole chat's going to be full of this question. Nobody wants to lose Dansby Swanson. Without a doubt, nobody wants to lose Dansby Swanson. That being said, it's one player. And we'll see in the offseason. We have a lot to get through before we have to worry about it. We have a big postseason to get through. And, we'll have to wait and see. Hato Mato asks a pretty interesting question. Could they sit Jake Odorizzi and pull up Ian Anderson? Ian Anderson was, of course, sent down earlier this year because he was not pitching very well in the major league level. Not, terribly. In 2022 at the major league level, he's got a 5 ERA. Again, not terrible. He did get 10 wins before that, 6 losses, 97 strikeouts, and he was, I don't remember what his last appearance was, but it's been a while. What I can tell you is this. Ian, I don't believe, is having the best time in the minors either. So it's not only that he struggled early on in the major leagues this year. He'd be brought up if he was pitching well in the minors. This year in the minors, he's got a 5.40 ERA, 1-2 on the year, only 21 innings pitched, and it makes me wonder: let me see something. He very well may be hurt for all I know. All I know is this: he's not ready to pitch in the major leagues. There's a lot to get through before he's ready. You don't want to just take Odorizzi out and put in a new puzzle piece. It's not really what you want to do. He's not. He hasn't had a great minor league season, and it's not going to translate to the majors magically. Jorge says Ian Anderson got injured. Yeah, he's injured. His season is over, just like Soroka's, and that kind of answers the question below that. Joe Reese, do you think Soroka could be put on the playoff roster if Strider is unavailable? Here's the thing, right? Soroka. We all wanted Soroka to be ready to go for the postseason. I was hoping, this is what this video is from. I drove up to Rome hoping that I'd see a sign or something, and we did. We saw, I think, 8 strikeouts or something like that. Maybe more than that. It was phenomenal appearance by Mike Soroka. 4 innings pitched, and it was great. After that, we didn't really see it again. And, I don't know that that's not something that we won't see next year. Of course, right now he's dealing with elbow inflammation, so he's done for the year, and we'll, of course, have to see. But, it's kind of the same situation. You don't want to remove somebody to put somebody that you don't know what you're getting. And, Soroka's done for the year anyway, but even if he wasn't, I don't think the Braves would do that. Not going to be on too much longer, guys. Probably going to wrap it up in about 10 minutes. So if you got something specific you want to ask, make sure to super chat it. Of course, we're doing a late night stream. We don't do this very often, but we will probably be here for the next couple of days going through the Wildcard series. Very interesting series today, of course, with everything going on, the big Philly comeback. That series is particularly interesting for my interest because, of course, we do cover the Atlanta Braves here. The winner of that series will determine who the Braves face, and, we will see about that. And, of course, we'll address that tomorrow if the Phillies are able to win tomorrow. They will have Aaron Nola on the mound, so the chances of them winning are high. And I really do think that the Phillies are going to win this series. If you win Game 1 of the wild card, a 3-game series, you have a great chance of winning the series anyway, much less add on the fact that you're pitching with Aaron Nola. I really think Philly is going to win that series. Let's see. Mad Map says, Tyler, I am tired of the be afraid of Freddie comments. Olsen is younger, hits for more power, and is better defensively. The only reason I wanted Freddie was to keep Pache and Langoliers, but they are terrible now. I wouldn't say they're terrible. Pache didn't quite amount to what the hype was around him. Langoliers, I think, still has time to prove that he is who they say he is. I think we did get the better end of the stick with Contreras as our catcher. I definitely think that is obvious. Pache, I think we solved that problem. That was a process of elimination. It is what it is. We got the better end of the deal there, got Matt Olson. But I would also say this, Freddie is, again, a great hitter, great player. And you have reason to not want Freddie to do well against you, right? It's always, not ideal for someone to leave the team and then come in and hit, just absolutely kill your team. I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember if we traded him or we released him or what, but Dan Uggla became a national at one point and hit this, he couldn't hit anything when he was on the Braves. His eyesight problems and everything. Anyway, we let him go in one form or another. Faces the Braves and has the game of his life. And it felt terrible. And this is the regular season I'm talking about. This isn't even anything important necessarily. And I absolutely hated it. I remember that specifically. I remember, Andrew Jones going to another team. Mark Teixeira going to another team. We remember all of those. And it's going to stink because inevitably this dude's going to perform. And Freddie's been a great hitter this year. There's no reason to expect that he won't perform. And just because he's no longer an Atlanta Brave does not mean that we should not fear him at the plate. We should not respect him at the plate. He is a great hitter. And you know what? He very well may have a postseason moment against us. But that being said, again, Olsen, great player too. And he very well might have a postseason moment or two against the Dodgers. Lucas says, Ian needs to polish his changeup and fastball and develop his curve and another pitch. In all credit to Ian Anderson, his struggles this year all accounted for. We've mentioned those. Ian got a little bit of an unfair shake. And what I mean by that, in 2020, COVID season, Soroka gets hurt. Kyle Wright is not up to snuff yet. And our starting rotation really kind of fell apart. You had Freed. You had, I don't even remember who was on starting rotation that year. I got to think. But anyway, we didn't have a complete rotation, to say the least. But that being said, Ian gets called up, and he is just not, he was one of our most consistent pitchers and a great pitcher in last year's postseason. This year he ran into some struggles, and it was never I looked at the sabermetrics. I really dug in deep. I was trying to figure out, is he not throwing hard? Is he not locating? There was no real indication of anything. I think the league has kind of figured Ian Anderson out. Fastball, changeup guy, kind of know what to expect. I think the league has figured him out. So to your point, I think adding another pitch, developing a curve, could be the beneficial thing. And, we'll see how it turns out. But, I think we also got to realize that sometimes people just struggle. And right now, Ian's going through a struggle period. Let's see. Jorge says, an interesting fact, the Braves have home field advantage if they make it to the World Series against every American League team except the Astros. Yeah, that is pretty interesting. I actually didn't know that. Thank you for that. Jesse Lancaster, Adam Duvall killed us in Miami last year. Thank goodness Jorge Soler didn't. Jock Peterson hit a homer against the Braves when I was at the park this year. Luckily the Braves won that game, and that was in the last inning. But regardless, it just is what it is. Bobby Mean says, no matter who we go up against, the Braves win, come out on top. Both the Padres and the Phillies are sitting pretty. Yeah, I keep showing this graphic. I keep showing the, just the postseason bracket. And look, here's how I feel about it, right? This is it again. Whoever gets through the wild card series has got a great challenge ahead of them. No matter what division team they have to face, it is quite the challenge. Because again, if you are the Mets, you still have to face, if you get through the Padres, which at this point I doubt they do. If you get through the Padres, you have to then go face the Dodgers, who on short rest. The Dodgers, of course, one of the greatest teams in baseball right now. If you are the Phillies and you beat the Cardinals in 2 games, you still have to face the Braves on short rest. If you are, the Seattle Mariners, you have to get through the Astros to get to the World Series, or to the ALCS. If you're the Guardians, you still have to get through the Yankees. Whoever it may be, it is still a huge challenge for those teams. Make no mistake, it is not a real good shot to make it. As much as I hate to say it, the wild card is that. It is a wild card. Joe Reese asked an interesting question. With Soroka returning next year, most likely, do you think the Braves will trade Anderson in the offseason? I would say no. My caveat to that is this. They have a lot of pitching. I mean, an awful ton of ton of pitching. And if I think about it for a second, you have Fried, you have Kyle Wright, you have Soroka, you have Charlie Morton, you have Jake Odorizzi right now for a couple more years, mind you. You have Bryce Elder, you have Kyle Muller, you have Ian Anderson, if I didn't already mention him. You just have a ton of pitching. Waskari Noah is still down in the minors. So there's a lot of pitching there. So could they trade Ian Anderson? Sure. Could they trade? I think the better question is, could they trade somebody? And I think the answer to that is a definite yes. What they would trade him for, I don't know. Maybe bullpen, maybe another starter. I'm not sure. But sure, the possibility is certainly there. I think you may see, like a lot of you guys have mentioned, a Carlos Rodon package. That is certainly in the cards. I think that is a possibility. We mentioned that earlier in the season, but, every team still kind of had a shot, and they weren't really giving up starting pitching. So I think that is an option. I think something like that could happen. Trade younger players for a veteran starter that could actually, benefit the team. I think the Braves may work with their own selection, with their own solution internally too. So we will see. Guys, only going to be here for a couple more minutes. Let's see. It's your boy. Put the spin rate on Scherzer tonight was low. Again, something may be wrong with him mechanically. I think something is wrong with Scherzer mechanically. I don't think it's velocity. I think it's definitely something mechanical. Luca says 100% prefer the Phillies over the Cardinals. Keep that devil magic away from us. Yeah, I'm with you. It's your boy says, I don't think you can count on Morton. He's done soon. Well, he signed another year deal, so he's here for a while. We'll see. Jorge Sapero asks, probably the greatest question I'm going to hear for a while. He says, can you imagine if the Phillies somehow make it to the NLDS, but the Mets don't? I think Mets fans would have a strike. That would be very interesting, especially how the season has progressed. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But, while there's a lull in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and kind of sign out. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Of course, this was a 2022 wild card wraparound for Game 1. Of course, every Game 1 was played today. Game 2s will be tomorrow night. We will see about a stream tomorrow night, possibly. Of course, tonight was a late night. Tomorrow night will likely be a late night as well, just right after the games tuning in. So just keep that in mind. We may be here, we may not. We'll, of course, update the community page. Just wanted to kind of come on here and surprise you guys and talk about all the series and the chaos that took place today, and what an interesting day it was. That being said, guys, we have a lot going forward in the postseason, so make sure to do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel, of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay updated with everything going on here at On Deck, and, of course, with the Atlanta Braves and all across Major League Baseball. Remember, Braves fans, your first postseason game will, of course, be Tuesday for the NLDS versus either the Phillies or the Cardinals. I will have a special guest in attendance, a former Atlanta Brave, so make sure to tune in. That will be, of course, during game time. We plan to be here the entire game. No promises on that, but make sure to tune in. We'll, of course, be here, and we'll update you on what the plan is. So that being said, one more time, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and we'll, of course, see you next time right here at On Deck.